Hi, Brian. Welcome. Good afternoon.
How you doing, Enzo? Good to be here.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Right. Time's up, man. So it's your turn now. You can share the screen. I see actually you already shared that, right? No, not yet.
Not yet. Here we go. Let's do this.
We are. Cool. Your slides are there. You just open them wide. Perfect.
Perfect.
Time's up.
Great. Good to be here, everyone. My name is Brian with PredictHQ. What we have built at PredictHQ is really an external event data tool to improve revenue management and other industries as well. What we really call ourselves internally is a global demand intelligence platform. And what that means is we are providing data about events going on all over the world, both historically and in the future, all served up through a single API and some other tools for revenue managers to use. We work not just with hotels and accommodation hospitality providers like Hyatt or Marriott or Uber, but also with all different industries across retail and travel as well. One of the things we've noticed as we've started to work with more hotels in the recent years is more data than just comp set data is really important, but it's hard to get and something a lot of hotels are not taking advantage of today. And that's where PredictHQ really comes into play with our 19 different types of events that we provide data around. We provide data around physical attendance-based events, such as every sports game or festival or expo or conference going on all across the world. We provide data around all school holidays, public holidays, university events, such as when college or university students are on spring break versus back to school versus going through graduation dates as well. And then also some more disruptive type events, such as severe weather or even natural disasters. And we've also started to track health warnings, such as COVID reopenings and closures by country or by state. All this data impacts businesses in different ways. So it's really important to have a single source of truth that your company can leverage in order to understand how future instances of these type of events are going to impact business and demand or even pricing in the future. So how does PredictHQ see the world of both forecasting and forecasting specifically for revenue management? We really kind of see a three-phased approach. And on the far left is kind of further down the maturity curve. And then as we get into what we call a demand intelligence org, that's what we see the most mature hotels and other businesses moving towards. And it really starts with a manual kind of planning and forecasting organization where, let's say, revenue managers in each location at each hotel or each city are making their own decisions based on their own rules that they've come up with. As we move towards a manual forecasting org, they're starting to leverage some sort of external data. We know a lot of individual hotels are collecting data around events manually themselves. They're using spreadsheets, and then they're making pricing decisions as new events are announced, whether it's a big Formula One race or a large conference coming to town. They're manually managing a lot of those exceptions. And one of our goals at PredictHQ is really to create as many demand intelligent organizations as possible. And these are those organizations that are leveraging not just statistical and machine learning as part of their forecasting and pricing decisions, but they're also using multiple data sources in addition to comp sets as part of that process. And when we see organizations move in this direction, they're really able to use data to get ahead of the competition and make the kind of not leave any money on the table from a revenue management point of view. One of the reasons PredictHQ exists is we know this problem is a hard thing to solve, and most organizations are solving it with just manual work right now. They may have people manually organizing this in spreadsheets, as I mentioned. They may be gathering it from several different data sources in a programmatic way. But I think the big challenge is making this data actionable for a central business intelligence or data science or forecasting team is hard if that data is all collected manually. And that's really where the PredictHQ intelligent data comes into play for a lot of our partners today. So what do we mean by an event? Everyone kind of knows about the large scale events. We could take something very popular where I am in London, Premier League games. The type of data we're going to provide is not just on an individual event level like we see here, but we'll provide data around start and end times of the game, a few different forms of rank, including in the top right here, how many people we're actually predicting will attend this singular event. We'll also provide lat-long information, so you can map every single event back to your closest hotel in that area to see if it has impacted demand historically or in the future. We know a lot of hotels are using individual events and tracking these today. And one of the trends that we see those demand intelligent organizations start to use is actually tracking data at an aggregate level for events. So I think a few cool visualizations in the time of COVID right now are looking at the total impact of all events across larger geographies. So we look at Europe here, and what this chart represents is the orange and red spikes are the canceled and postponed events that you see in 2021. So we see a lot of things being canceled and postponed all the way up to about August of this year. And now as we get into August through December, we see more and more green spikes, which are showing events really coming back into the fold and being scheduled again by these organizers. We can pinpoint a day, I think I have right here, September 8th, and we see that there's about 2 million people expected to attend events across Europe on that singular day. And that's really where demand is peaking again this fall from an events perspective, and where we see travel coming back as well. So we're really using events as a way to understand how COVID is recovering and how travel will recover based on the confidence level of these organizers throwing these events again. We can look at this in places more specific. We could drill down with this data to a specific hotel location just to look within, let's say, a 3-mile radius of your hotel. We can look at it by country or city. So here's another example of the UK. They see demand returning pretty quickly starting at the end of June and July. And this big spike in July 10th across the UK, we have 450,000 people attending events in the UK on July 10th. And that's made up of a few major events such as the Manchester International Festival, the RHS Hampton Court Palace Flower Show, and then the Wimbledon Tennis Championship, which has finals, I believe, on that day or the day after that. So big spike that hotels need to be prepared for. And what we find is this, what we call a perfect storm of demand, where multiple events are actually causing more impact than that singular Premier League event I showed earlier. But it's not something hotels are tracking today. And that's one of the ways we see data being used more intelligently across these organizations. We can look at this in Germany as well, from all the way beginning of 2020 to 2021. We see almost no events happening between March 2020 and August 2021. And now that spike is returning as we get later into 2021, especially in November. It looks like there's 3 major events and expos going on at that time that, again, hotels need to be aware of as they plan for that recovery. One of the things, questions I typically get is how are we able to source this data and know it's accurate and make these predictions? And that's really comes down to our data pipeline. So we're aggregating data from just over 200 different sources across the web, and then putting it through a pretty advanced machine learning model and pipeline built by our data science team to make sure every event is geocoded. It comes with ranking and intelligence before we push it out to our customers. Part of that intelligence comes in the form of ranks. So we are building a model to predict attendance for every single event. And then we're also adding a few different forms of ranking to use to sort through this data. One of which is an aviation rank filter that's actually used to understand which events people are flying into. So we've built that by taking some data from our partner Amadeus in terms of anonymized flight data inbound into cities to understand that better. I think in terms of the hotel use cases that we work with today, revenue managers are using this tool just to surface events and replace their manual search. We're also involved in some pricing optimization projects with data science teams and even staffing optimization to get better labor budgets for individual hotels as well, whether that's for food and beverage or general housekeeping and occupancy staffing optimization. Just quickly, I'll share a few different ways that some of our customers on that maturity curve are using this data, whether it's via API or via a BI tool. But you could do some pretty cool things, such as doing that 3-mile search I mentioned around your specific hotel. We could take a example of Atlanta and actually drill into those individual events on a day that are causing the highest demand for a particular hotel in that area. Could also build this into a event dashboard and BI tool, so we could have some selections to look at an individual tool and then start to understand not just events, but maybe what venues are going to be most impactful from that hotel from a demand perspective. And then lastly, you could also build in your own technology rather than the PredictHQ tool into a BI type interface and start to actually show those individual events that are most impactful on certain days, and give revenue management teams the power to sort through this on their own time and ability to make decisions if you weren't ready to program this into a forecast yourselves. So thank you. Yeah, feel free to reach out, and I'm looking forward to any questions that you guys may have.
Yeah, sure. Of course, we got a lot of questions. That very interesting. So we watched the bench direct, so we know how to track and predict direct sales. We got out inside watching with all hotels rates, more information on destinations. Now we got also this amazing tool with events, right, guys? What do you think about it, Scott?
Oh, I think it's super cool. Brian, first, who's the kind of the core customer? Is it big groups, small groups, individual hotels? Who is it?
Yeah, it's kind of all across the board. So we actually started the business out of a travel company in New Zealand. So the first idea came from a rental car business, and they started to use events as a way to drive demand. And they found that if they were able to say, book now because there's all this demand from these events, they're able to increase conversions just on rental car checkouts. So that's where the idea was born. A lot of our early customers were in the travel space with the likes of Uber and then large hotel brands who are pulling this into a centralized team to build their own forecasts within the business as well.
Amazing. Chris, do you have a question? Sorry,
Quick follow-up, if you don't. I mean, it's very interesting because there's a benchmarking opportunity there, but theoretically there's a digital marketing opportunity as well, right? You start to see these things happening, and you start to find those people. It's not just how to forecast them, right? But let's exceed our forecast. So that's pretty cool.
Targeting there, yeah, you're totally right. Here we come when revenue marketing is aligning more and more.
Quick question here. Do you integrate with revenue management systems?
Right now, we don't. So it's an API. So people are pulling in this data into revenue management systems via Excel exports, but we don't have any native integrations with revenue management systems. We are launching with one of the partners who spoke today very shortly into their tool. So hotels will be able to consume this data through some of the tools mentioned today, which we should announce shortly here.
That's very cool. I think that there is a lot of potential to, because you have a wealth of information there, a wealth of data. And whenever it comes to a wealth of data, it starts to be too complex to manually process it. So an RMS would be a good way to apply that. So
totally agree with you, Chris. Actually, it was the first question I made to Brian when we met first, right? So
yep.
I'm sure you're gonna get there. Federica, what's going on in Rome? You want to know anything about events in Rome, in your city, the Capital Mundi, no?
Right. I have to say that this tool would be really, really great for Rome and for Italy, because there are some cities, even Rome, I shouldn't say because it's not a good advertisement, but there is not so much information about the events. So really, Revenue Manager make a lot of efforts in order to gather those information. And sometimes you find out, because you say pick up, as a fast pickup, but when you find it out, it's too late. So a tool like this one can really be helpful in order to exploit every opportunity, because you know in advance and you don't get crazy in gathering information. So that is really great. Just have a quick question. Since I saw that there were also information about COVID. So I'm curious to know if you have are able to gather information also on all the restrictions that there are in entering and going out from a country. Because what's happening is that a country can come to Italy, for example, but then the day after, no, there is quarantine. Then next week it's free to travel, and this has an impact on the demand. So do you provide also this kind of data?
We're not going down to the specifics of all the different restrictions per country. What we are doing is we are adjusting attendance predictions for the events based on a lot of those restrictions. So for example, in the UK, there's limits of 50% capacity up until mid-July, and then that increases for certain event types up to 100% capacity. So we factor that in on an individual event basis, and that's how a lot of the businesses we work with are using COVID restrictions to understand demand from an events perspective.
Okay, thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you, Brian. Times is gone, and now we have to move to the next session with Joyce from Revenue, Ideas Revenue Solutions. Thank you again, and I wish you will get a lot of contacts today. Feel free to get in touch with Brian, guys, through LinkedIn, to the website. PredictHQ is a great tool to predict events revenue. Thank you, my friend. Bye.